Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host
Hey.
of He Said, She Said, They Said, and...
So it is. Hey, Jane, and it's Andrew Plank here with LePage. How is everybody today?
Good. How was your weekend?
It was a good weekend. Yeah, got away up to Duncan for a little bit of a trip away, and I've got a listing that went live. It's been very active. Somebody lost a key at one point, which caused some drama, but we worked it out.
Gotta love it when that happens. I once had a key drop into a grate. Ooh.
Yeah, I was showing a property one time, and I took the key out of the lockbox and fumbled it, and it went down through a deck, slotted deck, and there was just dirt underneath. The deck was only like less than a foot high, and there was no access to get. He was just gone. So that was fun.
Life as a realtor, I've had that happen, and then this guy shows up with a hammer and starts taking the deck apart, and then he puts it back together.
Good thing. Yeah.
So
I've been very careful with keys ever since.
So pretty hot market out there, hey?
Yeah. I mean, all of our colleagues are just. Everybody's foaming at the mouth to find that property that what's under that rock. Where can we find something for our buyers? It's nuts. It's sad actually, because it's a wonderful time if you have a property that you really want to sell, but it's a really hard time for buyers. But
yeah. So yeah.
I was just going to say I read a really good, heartwarming story about. We are seeing a lot of multiple offers, and sometimes 10 or 20 offers are going in on a property, and it's usually the best terms and best price that wins it. But there was a story about somebody in Ontario who actually took the lowest offer because they just really liked the buyers and buyer story, and it was just it just goes to show that sometimes it's more than just price, and some people, we really need to know that these days. How can we create a connection for people?
Right. So in the States, those letters, by the way, those love letters are not allowed, but they are here because in the States you're not allowed to choose based on demographics of the people who are offering. But
well, you wouldn't really be allowed that here either, but I guess the States are more litigious, and the fact is that everybody wants to know who they're receiving an offer from, and it's that choice can be less about I guess what you're saying is there is a risk that someone chooses based on race, creed, or color, income levels, and all of that. But if somebody writes a nice letter, it's also a classy way of saying, of an introduction and saying, this is who I am. And I find just doing that puts yourself usually on a higher level and a higher footing than just a black and white piece of paper with some numbers on it. Everybody wants to know, I think, generally who it is that they're working with. This is a business transaction, and that business transaction does mean, who am I talking to here?
I do put, if somebody's qualified or
exactly
all that information on the receiving end of those letters. They do work. Because we were selling my mom's property and we cared that it was a young family moving in, and anyway.
It's very hard. I would say that without a letter, it's very hard. I mean, we also are under obligations as realtors to keep our clients' confidences and not share or divulge any personal information. So without that permission, we can't really share that, this is a young couple looking for their first home, or that this is retirees who will just really want to live in the neighborhood and they love gardening and they love the gardens there, and so on and so forth. These are things that we do often convey with permission, but having an actual letter of introduction to some degree is helpful.
Yeah, it helps. It keeps us out of trouble too. And yes. I think it does give them an advantage. Okay. So today we have our guest, Jen Lowe. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So before the show, you were talking about the fact that you're quiet on the weekends. Why is that?
Well, quiet in the context of no kids' activities, very limited kids' activities, and running around from A to B to C. Work-wise, I would say I'm quiet. It definitely is busy with inquiries of, can you look at this property? Is this property okay? Can we go unconditional? Can you review these strata docs? Those kinds of things. But
Okay.
Are
Awesome.
you finding then, like, as buyers agents, when an agent is working with buyers, realtor is working with buyers, they're doing a lot of work per transaction because they're writing a number of offers that aren't succeeding against competing offers against property after property before they get it. That must also create churn for you as people are inquiring about properties and saying, can I get pre-approved on this property? I want to make an offer on this property. Then they don't get it and they have to move on to the next one. So then they repeat that same client. You're doing the work over and over again. Are you finding a lot of that as well?
very much so. Yeah. There's a fine line in understanding what a pre-qualification is versus what a pre-approval is. And the most important thing is for clients to be pre-approved. That means that myself as the mortgage broker has reviewed their income documents, confirmed their down payment source. There's multiple sources that their down payment could be coming from, right?
Yep.
Verified their income and completed a credit check to avoid any surprises. What hasn't been approved is the property.
Right.
How long is a credit check good for?
30 days.
And how often? So the advantage of going with you is that you do one credit check. If they go shop at different institutions, they're getting credit checks all the time. How many credit checks do you need for it to start digging your credit rating?
It's the percentage point of how it would reduce your credit score by having multiple dings is only accounts for 15% of the total credit score, the makeup of the credit score. The most important thing is when we're reviewing your credit, we're looking at what are your credit limits versus your balances on your credit cards. Those kinds of things can have a much greater impact on your credit score than by going to multiple institutions.
Right.
So I actually raised my credit limit because I thought I should have less percentage. Like if I had $1,000 and I was spending $750 every month, I was up to 75% of my limit. So then I thought, okay, well, if I go to $5,000 and I spend $750, I'm just less than even 20%. So
that would give you a clean, mature, and thick credit score.
Okay.
Which is what you want.
Okay. So let's talk about what's going on in the market today. I'll get it going. I finally figured out how to do this. Yay. So, hold on. Oh my God.
I love that picture of you guys.
Yeah,
that's
me too.
great.
Oh, it's fun.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to recognize today is International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day, everybody.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day.
That is a great slide. Is there a way you can make that full size? Because it's showing up as part of it's more of a display slide. There you go. Excellent.
Okay. Awesome.
Hey, everybody, I don't know how to do this.
What? I can't see anything.
Making little hearts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the stats for today. We are at, oh my goodness, 1,338 active listings. So there are now more realtors than there are listings. 323 over the last week. And new listings last year I think we're up to speed. We're maybe over a little last year. Last year we had 1,084 altogether. Do you want to do unconditional sales?
the net unconditional sales this March is only, partway into it. That we're at 254 for the so far, and then last year, the full month, there were 608 sales. So we're still got a ways to go. We're only a week into the month, and we've already got 254 unconditional sales. So that's booking for maybe more sales than last March. And of course, last March was, as we'll see in I think a future slide, the beginning of where we were starting to see the effects of COVID on the market.
Right. So list to sale ratio is very high still. Last week it was 1-to-1. We're at 252 pending compared to 296 sales. So the stats on the left are from the last 7 days, and the one at the bottom is the last 8 days.
So it's nice to see the new listings, larger than the pendings. It's nice to see a bit of a gap there. If we consistently see that, we'll start to see the inventory going up. But there's with the new listings coming on, we're also going to find that I think buyers are going to be snapping those up as quick as they can.
Right, and I did see some decreases on the weekend, mainly houses with weird layouts. So somebody asked me, why are we only seeing crappy houses? It's because now is a good time to sell your house if you have something strange about it. Including one that I saw. I call it the mullet house. Business on the front, party in the back.
I have a little illustration. I have a little video I did at one point on my YouTube, but I talk about, one of the reasons why you only see the fixer-upper houses maybe in your price point right now is, at any point over the last 6 months, there's been a number of listings that have come up, and there's sort of an equal number of nice listings and fixer-uppers in that price point or what have you. But the great ones are going to sell faster. So they're little blips on the marketplace, and they just disappear off the market. And then there's the average homes that go in an average amount of time. And then what you're left with is these homes that are the fixer-uppers. And those are the ones that people aren't wanting. So when you're going to look at a segment of the marketplace, you're only really seeing a larger segment of less desirable homes. And the good homes will have sold and disappeared quickly. They're the ones that are always, you say, I want to see that home, and then you get back to them and say, well, it's already under offer.
Well, I think that's also when you first start looking, you're going to have a little bit of difficulty even getting, knowing that you're seeing a good house. So, for instance, last week I said to my clients, I said, this listing is going to come up and it's really nice. And based on your criteria, I think you should offer on it. And we went to see it, and they were like, oh, I love it, but it's too soon. Yeah. And then, so what that means is they haven't seen enough product to know, and they don't yet trust their realtor to write the offer.
Well, they don't trust the realtor, or they don't trust themselves. I mean, there is something to be said for just knowing you're making the right decision. And it's really hard to be told and trust the fact when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars that, if you don't buy this, you're going to be spending more down the road, or this is the best we're going to find you. You better take action on it, because, we all have that little voice in the back of our head saying, am I just getting sold a line of goods here?
Right. So this came up. It comes up every 6 months, and I thought it was interesting. So we looked at all buyers' origins, and 90.94% of buyers are from BC. 7.86% were from elsewhere in Canada, and 1.2% were from outside of Canada. And then I looked at the out-of-town buyer origins, and 65% of the out-of-town people were in BC. 29.9% were elsewhere in Canada, and 4.53% were from outside Canada. And I know that I sold to a few people from the US last year who are Canadians coming, repatriating.
Yeah.
So anyway, are you finding that, Jen? And what are the implications of people buying who are non-Canadian residents or non-Canadians?
Yeah, I've done a few for Americans looking to move back to Canada. They're Canadian citizens. They've left Canada for work or what have you. It's a little bit easier now per se because of, with COVID, Signings can be done remote. So you can actually meet with your lawyer over Zoom to complete the signings.
Right, because it's a visual witnessing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that happened because the border closed, I think.
Correct. Yeah.
It's funny how the technology the practice catches up with the technology when there's a problem.
Yes. Because before that, there was no way, no how. Lenders required you had to be in Canada to sign for a mortgage if you're purchasing.
I wonder how that's going to affect corporate law. We'll find out, I guess.
Mm.
Okay, so averages this month in Victoria. So I actually, when I was making this chart up, I was looking compared to last month, and actually it's come down a bit, which is nice. So the average in February 2021 was 1.160, and the median was 978, and we were talking about the flip-flop in and around $1 million. What are you finding, Andrew?
What you mean in terms of where that's the how do you put it? That's the bullseye. That's the center point. I mean, everything is topping out at 1 million because of the 20% down requirement above $1 million. So that being said, there are, I think, we are seeing that number being pushed above, and we're seeing actually quite a lot of heat in the below 1.5 million as well. It's interesting you mentioned, you say again the average on February is below the average for January, but the median for February is right around the same.
Yeah, 975 last month
versus 978 this month. So we're really looking, when you look to the median, we're just a little bit up, but we're still really highly active. We may have seen an average price lowered, but that could just be because, again, you can see that we had many more units sold in the month of February than we had in the month of January. And it's going to be that perhaps many of those units were priced under $1 million. They may have just not been the kind of homes that sell for over $1 million.
Right.
It
And
depends
I
on
am
the homes that you have.
Right. I am finding some realtors are being strategic
with your
in
words.
pricing. What?
Oh yeah, I said careful with your words.
Strategic with their pricing and pricing it just under $1 million, because if somebody can get under $1 million, their financing is way different. Right,
Yeah.
Jen?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you cannot get a insured mortgage above 999,000. So if you have less than 20% for a down payment, reiterating what you were saying earlier there, the purchase price can't be above $1 million.
Right. And just like to give perspective compared to last year in February, the median was at $799. And this year it's at $978. So we're almost up $200,000. 180. Anyway, so that's all over Greater Victoria though. And obviously average is affected by highs and lows. And I know that we've had more high-end sales this year.
Yeah. It's a question for Jen. Just I hear every once in a while someone say, look, I really want to buy that house that's at $1,050,000, and I have less than 20% down, but I could maybe I could negotiate something where we put the price at $999,000, and we somehow come up with the difference. And just want to state again that that's not kosher, not legal. But do you find people asking and trying to find ways around this this price point, and what ways are people discussing it? And of course, and that gets shut down.
Yeah, I mean, the lenders have. I mean, when we're looking at an estimated value of a property, the lenders are looking at the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value. So something to be aware of. So yeah, so if they want to try and lower the price, it's going to come out at some point.
Right.
So, and just so everybody is aware of terms, appraised value is what the bank is giving as a lending value for the property.
Yes.
And so what Andrew's saying is sometimes the lending value is different than the actual market value. Market value is the balance between what the seller is willing to let it go for and the buyer wants to pay. And then, which is kind of a misnomer right now, because often we're now listing here and selling here. So the buyer's more motivated than the seller.
Added to this, normally, when you have a less than 20% for a down payment, not very often are we required to have an appraisal on that property, because there is an auto appraisal system that the insurer has. So the second step of the process, CMHC insurance, they have an auto appraisal system. Now what's happening is, because the values of the properties are selling based on the market value, those haven't, or the auto appraise system hasn't caught up to our current market value. So the insurer, CMHC, is ordering their own appraisals in certain circumstances now. We're seeing this more and more, which can be challenging, because if the appraised value comes in less than the market value, the client is responsible to make up that difference.
Which is why you really shouldn't write an offer without subject to financing.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
The risk is that you end up making an offer that's unconditional, and you think, and the bank does the appraisal and says this property's not worth as much as you've agreed to pay for it, and we don't want to lend you all this money, and then you not be able to sell the home and get our money back. So there needs to be the right amount of gap in that.
Which
so
was the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value.
Yeah.
Jen, does the appraisal ever come in above what the paid price is?
We're seeing that now sometimes too. Yes. Yeah, it does.
Okay. I have a question. I don't know if it's a good time now, but what do you think is going to happen with the interest rates?
Which kind of interest rates, fixed or variable? The thing is, what's that?
People are looking at both. So which one?
Yes. So we can't lump them all together, because they are tied to different things. So the fixed rates are tied to the bond market. What has pushed the fixed rates up is that the bond yields have increased. Variable rates continue to be unaffected.
Okay. And then open versus closed.
Open, well, the definition of an open interest rate is that there's no penalty to get out of that mortgage or that term. The only time from an open interest rate that would be advantageous to take that is that if your mortgage is very close to renewal and you're looking to sell or something like that. Open rates are still really high. Closed term, there's a penalty to get out of that mortgage. With the closed term, now I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but with the closed term, if you have a fixed or a variable rate and you need or want to get out of your mortgage early, there's of course a penalty to get out of that mortgage, being that it's a closed term. How that penalty is calculated is dependent on the type of interest rate that you have, whether you have a fixed rate or a variable rate. The penalty for a variable rate is a 3-month interest penalty. Only ever a 3-month interest penalty, it's pretty low. A couple $1,000s, for example, on a $400,000 mortgage. If you have a fixed rate closed term mortgage, your penalty to get out of that is much higher, as it's based on an interest rate differential penalty. What's changed rate-wise is we had fixed rates as low as 1.69 thereabouts, and they've increased to now about 1.94. So
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. It's about $12 per 100,000 mortgage-wise. So average mortgage in Canada is about 400,000, so that equates to about $48 increase if you wanted a fixed rate mortgage.
Which, if you're not wanting to take a risk and you're thinking the mortgage rates are going to go up, you're going to buy into.
Correct.
Yeah.
I always tell people also look at the terms and conditions, not just the rate, because different banks have different, or lending institutions have different penalties and stuff, and prepayments and all of that.
Well, and are you dealing with someone, are you able to access them easily for support and information, or are they, somewhere back? They're usually back east anyway, but something, you also want to look at what support you're going to receive from your mortgage lender.
I was watching a video this weekend put on by a colleague of mine that I look up to. He's definitely a mentor of mine, named Dustin Woodhouse. He's the president of Mortgage Architects across Canada. And he was talking about the difference of fixed versus variable rates, and the penalty calculation to be aware of with a fixed rate mortgage, how it's calculated from one lender to another. What was really interesting, and I don't know if it, you probably can't, no, you can't see it very good, but this is information that I just pulled off of the RBC website this morning, because when I watched this video on Saturday, I thought, is that really still on the RBC website? It is. So when they talk about the penalty calculation, it is referring to a 9% interest rate, and the discount off of their interest rate is 0.5%. So how their penalty calculation that they show currently on the RBC website, in explaining the difference from an interest rate differential penalty versus a 3-month interest penalty, comes up with a penalty of about $2,200, assuming you have a 9% interest rate per 100,000. Of course, what's changed is that the discounts that we're obtaining on mortgages currently is 2 to 3%, which increases the penalty drastically. So it'd be interesting to see, and we could definitely have another show about it, in really diving into the difference of an interest rate differential penalty and a 3-month interest penalty for a variable rate.
One of the things I always ensure that I do is I talk to my clients, and I ask them, my seller clients, ask them to confirm with their lender what penalty actually is for them before they sell. And early on in my career, I had a real estate partner, and he listed a property. We co-listed it, but he was the primary with that client. And that conversation hadn't been had, and that seller agreed to sell her home. And at the end of the day, ended up with at the time a $20,000 more than she'd anticipated cost in terms, because of the interest rate differentials. And that's a bitter pill. So it's really important to know, when you're calculating your reasons of, what am I trying to do and how am I going to accomplish it? What's my money in my pocket at the end of the day from a sale? It makes a big difference in your net by knowing what this is. Also,
making sure when you sell that you can qualify to purchase again, because sometimes your financial situation, like if you've retired, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So It's a lifestyle change in more ways than one. Okay, we're gonna move through this. This is just
one more quick comment is when you are buying, though, also it's really important to get to know what your future plans are. If you're thinking you might be moving within the next 2 or 3 years again, you want to think about, again, what is this? What's this? Why am I going into it? What mortgage product do I really need? And again, Jen can walk you through that, but it's really important to know that that's a conversation that you should be having, and sharing your future plans with your professionals, with your people that you're working with.
Well, and Jane, to go back to your question of what's happening with interest rates, the slight change in the fixed rates, it doesn't affect what you're pre-approved for, because of the stress test that was brought into play a few years ago. So your qualifying interest rate has not changed, and interest rates would have to increase 2% in order for that to affect the amount you qualify for.
okay.
Thanks, Jen. That's interesting.
Okay, so I brought up a new stat we haven't looked at in a long time. It's a home price index. So the HPI has they call a nominal home, which is like the ideal home of 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, or whatever. And they went back to look at statistics since 2000 and 1995?
96.
I
It
think
goes back a ways.
Yeah. Anyway, it's and so that at that point it was 0, and then they looked at price increase over time. And so what they've done here is they've done a percentage difference from 12 months ago, February 20 to February 21. So in Victoria, we're up 10.8%. The core all is, and this is for single family homes, 9.0%. West Shore is up 10.1%. Peninsula is up 15.3%, and I think that's because there are larger properties up there. The Gulf Islands are also up 4.8%, and surprisingly, the Malahat's up 18.8%.
I don't find that surprising.
More people are moving out.
Yeah. We're finding people that the diminished pricing, and it's the concentric rings from the center. It starts to expand out first, and then it's that chocolate fountain effect, and the low pricing in Malahat just jumps up so much faster at the end than the stuff in the core. I just want to say one thing about this house price index. This is like the consumer price index. It's where they consider a basket of goods and say, how is the price of bread and this basket of bread and apples and everything gone up and down over time. But one of the differences here is that subject house is different for each of these areas. So the West Shore will have a different house structure that they're using as their feature house that they're tracking versus a house in Victoria, for example.
Right.
So go ahead.
And also it's relative pricing too, because they're not all at the same price. It's just relative to last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So total active listings over the past 2 years, there's a little bit of a bump up since December.
Yeah.
Wow.
We usually start to see this bump, this curve begin to happen in February and into March and April. And then generally, May, June peaks and then starts to go down again. June is actually a little late, but I see in the last couple of years, we kind of, we reached the peak around May, June.
April, May usually.
Yeah, it's usually April, May, but the last couple of years have been a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, probably like the 2019 is normal and the 2020 is all, what the heck? Okay, total listings and sales. So just looking at the ratio here, we can see the sales, which are the line, and the bar graph are the listings, is that the sales were very consistent over the end of last year, and that's what caused our low inventory. Right?
Yeah.
And also we had, so the market just shifted 2 months, which we've been saying for a while. It's funny when you do this every week, you kind of get bored of it, but then I realize there are people who don't watch this.
How do you think our audience feels?
So single family homes, what we've been talking about has happened. So it jumped up since last year, definitely over $100,000.
Mm.
I'm not bored. Just for the record, I am not bored. This is
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
And condo prices have been fairly consistent. I think if you looked at it over the long term, it would look fairly flat, but a little bit of a rise. And then the same thing in townhomes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at 675 now for townhome, and then condos are up just under 550, and houses are just over $1 million, coming down from 1.15 now, coming down from 1.2. So then that brings the ratio. I have figured out how to do a perfect circle, by the way. So very steady market from I would say 2018 to 2020. I remember like having a little bit of difficulty selling a beautiful house in Fairfield last year that would now go for way higher.
Mm-hmm.
However, they bought a home for way less.
Yeah.
And so your chances of selling right now are pretty freaking awesome.
So in any month, if you have, and it goes back to one of our first slides there where we show the number of new listings versus the sales. And there's the two different graphs, and we show, and there's usually a slight difference, or in the last few months, they've been very close to the same. It's one of our early slides in our whole talk, so don't go all the way back there. But we use that slide every week, and just to say that, last month there were, 600 sales and well, it's one of our, are you going to go there? Yeah, this one. So the new listings versus the pendings, the 296 versus 252. So this is where we're talking about our percentages. And so it's that, take that and run at that as a percentage. And that's where we get this current one. So we're up near 90%, 85% of listings selling. That's not that every listing sells, but of that average between the new listings and the sales in that month are really close. So we're seeing that back in April 2020, you would have had a much different graph where you would have only had, 5% of the properties listing selling in that month. That was, of course, because we hit the wall because of COVID. But now we're in this very, that blue line is really where we tend to fall for an average, and that's kind of more of a balanced market. And you can see we're really, really, really strongly into a seller's market.
I just want to say, for those who think that realtors, that every property we list sells, this gives you a great example of the list to sale ratio.
Yeah.
So normally you have between 20 and 30% in a balanced market of selling your home. And then in a seller's market, it moves up to 85%. So it really is, I've talked about the trifecta. So low interest rates, low inventory, and high demand is the perfect trifecta for selling.
Yeah. And so just to explain this, I always feel like I have to explain a little, over-explain perhaps. I'm sorry, and apologies to folks, including my fellow presenters here. But when you see that number in the 20 to 30% range, that's during a listing contract. So it doesn't mean your home won't sell, but it'll take a lot longer to sell potentially. You may have to adjust your price over a couple of listing terms. And that's what we would have seen back in those days, where you would have listed your home and maybe you have a 2 or 3 month contract with a realtor. And if it doesn't sell during that period, it gets listed again and listed again. And each time it's considered a new listing. So eventually they do sell, but it takes a lot longer. So it's not, when we say the chance of it selling is only 10, 20, 30%, it's more the chance of it selling in a reasonable time frame. And
right. And this is
how you are versus your competitive listings.
Right. It depends on when you list it, because if you can see the ratio here in June.
Yeah.
is a lot different than the ratio here in November of this year. So if you had listed your house in November, your house would have sold way more quickly than it would have in June. And then in a normal market, we have two bumps. So we have a spring market and a fall market. And so I always tell people, specifically those who are around the university, that if you want to list in September or August, because you're going to get a very good chance of selling here. Because the numbers go down and lots of people are looking in that specific area. But if you're going to be in Souk, it may be a different story. So you really need to understand where you are in the market and like physically where you are in the market as well.
Thanks, Jane.
So what are your predictions for this coming year, you guys?
Well,
I'll let Jen go first.
Yeah,
we already talked about
interest rate standpoint, depending on the fixed rate side, depending on what happens with the bond yields, rates could go up a little bit more. Our economy is rebounding. Vaccinations are happening, which is wonderful. However, on the variable rate side, I don't foresee any change to prime rate anytime soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Andrew, what's your prediction on the housing market again?
Well, I was just, I feel like we have a really low inventory, historically low inventory, and there's a lot of buyers out there who are really looking for a home, but some of them are getting priced out of the market or getting frustrated. And I've seen this in the past where they sort of throw up their hands and say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to sign a rental contract for a year and I'll come back and check this out later. I'm just not, or I'm going to go look somewhere else. I'm going to move to a different city. My plans to move to Victoria are changing. So I feel like I hope to see actually more inventory coming through the spring. I feel like we're going to see more inventory in the spring. And it really depends on whether or not we reach that point where that balance between the number of buyers and number of sellers, it becomes more balanced, and we end up sort of having that inversion where we actually end up with more sellers than buyers. At that point, we'll see the market either stabilize or plateau or what have you.
Right. So
I'm looking for that to happen towards the end of the spring market.
Okay.
Once the daffodils are out.
They're out. Okay, so my prediction is I'm thinking I do have listings coming up, but still I have there are sellers who have to sell. So it's either an estate sale or actually in both cases that I'm thinking of right now, it's an estate sale. So just life is happening. And the buyers are very motivated. I'm seeing that in the number of listings. I'm seeing like in Mechosen right now, we only have 5 listings. That's where I live. Mm-hmm. Normally we're up around 20 to 30. So it's like, it's kind of hard. And just keeping my finger on the pulse, I'm seeing some buyers are getting what you're saying, a bit dissuaded. Some are in rentals and they're like, I got to get out of here. I can't handle this anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think like begets like. So if we start to see more listings coming on the market, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I can't see it right now. I think what's going to stop the market is if we have a rate increase in interest rate. We'll just get a little pause. Volume will come up. So it's really, to me, it's really dependent on the interest rate.
I find actually when there's an interest rate bump, it almost creates more heat in the marketplace as people say, I've got to beat the rates.
Because they've got 60 days, they've got a rate hold.
Yeah. So it tends to actually create a little bit more heat on the market. And then I find it's sort of counterintuitive, I guess. But when the rates go up a bit, you actually see sales go up a little bit as well. And then maybe settle out after that. Are we going to have a dance party, Jane?
Yeah. The media really does create a bit of panic around fixed rates are going up, they're going up. And it's kind of, please reach out to your mortgage professional and let's reconfirm what your goals are and the type of interest rate that you're interested in. And, fixed rate is the way to go. I'm happy to, we get it. We can get a rate hold in place for 120 days. And ideally we try and extend those prior to rate increases.
Yeah. So if you're working with a mortgage broker, I always say it's never too early. Just get a little Dropbox folder, start sticking your receipts for your pay stubs, your notices of assessments, pay your taxes.
Yeah.
Get your gear in order so that when you like a house, you can actually go in and just offer on it.
Even if you're a year away or more, like it's a coaching session, talk to your realtor, talk to your lender, talk to your mortgage broker and say, what do I need to do to get ready? Because it will help you align what you need to you don't know what you don't know, and it'll help you realize and recognize, okay, maybe I should lower those, the rates on my credit cards. So, sorry, lower the, what do you call it?
Increase the credit or your credit limit.
Your credit limit on your credit card to help bring my credit score up so that I can just tailor everything. So when it's time for me to go, I'm absolutely ready. Because when you see the right home come up, you want it now. And if you're not actually ready because you haven't talked to your professionals, you're going to be really disappointed. And see it all the time. People come to me and say, I'm ready to buy a home. And they really should have been talking to somebody 6 months, a year ago to really get themselves, because there's a piece of that pre-qualification that they're missing that they now need to get from a past employer or from somebody that there's a big timeline on getting it, and it's trouble. So do what you can to support yourself. Talk to your professionals and get yourself lined up.
And mind your business. Do your taxes.
Mm.
Yes.
Keep yourself up to date.
Yeah.
Pay your bills on time. Like I'm telling my kids right now, I've got my son his first credit card. He got his first credit card. I'm like, did you pay it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you pay it?
Don't make major changes to your financial situation. Like don't go and lease a car, right?
Definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Never
never
make
too early to get approved.
Pardon?
It's never too early to start the process, and I try and make it as seamless as possible. Let's just see what based on your numbers, what we can do for you, do that credit check and avoid any surprises.
And I'll just say this for anybody watching that, I never mind if someone calls me and they're really not ready to go, but they have questions about the process or the market, or they're really just trying to get some answers. Just call. I'm happy to talk to people. Yes, I know we may not be doing business ever or for 5 years or whatever it is, but, give us a call. And Jen, I'm sure you would make the same call, and same 100%. With you, Jane. Yeah.
What's your number, Andrew? My
number is 250-360-6106, and you can email me, and that's a phone or text. That's 250-360-6106, or email me at info@andrewplank.com.
And Jen, what's your number?
250-217-4925.
Okay. And my name's Jane Johnston, and my number is 250-744-0775, or you can email me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. Briar Hill is not a person, just saying. Okay, you guys. So what do you want to talk about next week, Andrew?
I think, are we talking about buying or selling homes in the States from Canada? Is that what we're talking about?
That's in 2 weeks.
That's in 2 weeks? Yeah. Okay. Then want to talk about the weather?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll come up with a fancy topic. We'll see you next Monday. We're here every Monday. You can check us out on Facebook or on YouTube at Jane Johnston Realtor. And if you have any questions in the meantime about what's going on in the market, reach out to all of us. As we said, it's never a bad time to reach out to a realtor and make the decision to get in touch with them before you want to make the decision to buy, because it's too stressful otherwise.
Yeah. And often it's the first conversation is often with the lender as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thanks, Jen. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Bye.
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 Bye, guys.